Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents As Grimoire as It Gets by Zane Thomas. Narrated by Cris Dukehart. Chapter 1. In Which We Talk Trust. There had only ever been one man, one person who I trusted absolutely. I trusted him without any doubt. If he said he was going to do something, he'd do it. If I asked him to keep a secret, that secret would never leave his lips. He was a good man. The best, really. He was my father. He raised me. He was a constant presence throughout my life. He was my rock. Unfortunately, he wasn't the only man I'd trusted. Over the years, I'd given several men the benefit of the doubt. Friends, boyfriends, co-workers, and husbands. Multiple. I gave my ex-husband Mark an inch and he took miles. Thousands of miles, in fact. When I caught him cheating, I fled from our home in California to my grandmother's front step in Creel Creek, Virginia. I'd never lived in a small town before. To me, it was strange in many ways, and Creel Creek was smaller and stranger than most. Downtown was a ghost town, except for a used bookstore and smoke shop. There was a lack of dining options and hardly any nightlife whatsoever. Well, that part isn't exactly true. A certain sort gathers under the moonlight once or twice every month. Other things bothered me too, like how the fog rolled in every morning. Things only got weirder. I'd been in town a few weeks when Gran dropped several truth bombs. She told me I was a witch, like her and like my mother. She told me my powers would come in when I turned 40. That's 40, as in the big 40. I turned 41 the other day. And those weren't anything compared to the biggest bombshell Gran dropped that day. Like my father, I'd always believed my mother had died in a plane crash when I was little. Gran told me that wasn't true. No, my mother, the witch, had gone missing after taking a job from a shadowy paranormal organization known as the Faction. My father died before I could deliver this news to him in person. He was killed. Murdered. By a demon. The anniversary of his death, now just a week away, weighed heavily on my mind. With him gone, I found it hard to truly give in and trust anyone. This was despite making a few great friends, having an amazing boyfriend, and gaining a familiar to call my own. Brad had made the garage his makeshift home here at Dave's house. He wasn't welcome inside it. Dave, being a werewolf and not a witch, couldn't hear Brad's thoughts as I could. They were incommunicado. Basically, Dave saw Brad as a glorified pet, not the former angelic being he is. Familiars are neutrals in heaven's war against hell. Instead of fighting on either side, they came to Earth. Through a pact with Mother Gaia, also known as Mother Earth, they became attendants to the magic spread across the earth, helping witches and wizards and the like. Brad wasn't your average familiar. Not a cat or a dog or even a rodent. Brad had latched on to a memory in my mind of Rocket Raccoon from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He was hefty from too much cat food, had a long fluffy tail, and sported watery eyes behind his black mask. The garage door was open and the light off. The raccoon was just a small shadow in the corner of the garage. His eyes glowed in the darkness. "What are you up to?" I asked him. A street lamp at the end of the driveway cast shadows on the pavement. His attention was drawn to it. He kind of shrugged the way raccoons are able. "Keeping an eye out." His voice was deep and gravelly. It came from nowhere, and from everywhere. I crossed the garage and sat on the bumper of Dave's minivan. I stared out at the same piece of landscape, a green space with sidewalk where several months ago a paranormal hunter had tried to eliminate me. I couldn't see the small opening, the portal to the Shadow Realm, but I knew it was there. As always, I could sense its magic, thrumming with power. Somehow, Brad had ripped a hole through reality to use his magic to stop the hunter. Familiars can't use magic in this realm on Earth. Brad had exploited a technicality. He'd been in the Shadow Realm at the time. I'm guessing you haven't seen much activity lately. It was more a question than an actual guess. He answered, "All quiet on the Western Front." I half smiled at the joke. "But you're worried. I can see you're worried." "Of course I am. Aren't you?" I struggled a moment. I knew what this was about. I hadn't forgotten. It was just crazy how close we were to something else I'd been dreading for a long time. My father's death had been the catalyst for a chain of events, ultimately leading to my agreement to set a demon free for 1 hour of a day a year from that day. And now a year had passed. This was how much freedom, even a short one, meant for a demon. All immortals are bound by rules. This included the fallen, whether they became familiars or demons. Unless summoned, a demon was bound to the Shadow Realm and the realms connected to it. But unlike familiars, if a demon was let loose in our world, they could use their powers. Every minute a demon had in our world was a threat. Custos was getting 60. This was in exchange for 2 things: Brad's freedom from the prison realm, and for Custos to hold another prisoner. The demon Beiruth had something to do with my mother's disappearance. What that something was, well, I wasn't sure. Around the same time, she had taken Kayleen's mother captive. After years of torment, Rainbow Moon eventually captured her captor, trapping the demon with her in the Shadow Realm. But Beiruth had wriggled free. She killed my father, and she tried to kill me. "I'm taking it one day at a time," I told Brad. "First, I'll drink to my father's memory. Then I'll worry about the demon." Brad made a throaty sound. "I noticed you haven't trusted Dave with any of this." There was that word again. Trust. A sinking sensation took residence in my chest. I haven't told many people about it. It's between me and you and the demon. Honestly, I thought you were helping me out with this. "I am," Brad said defensively. "I have a plan if you're willing to hear me out. And it's between you, me, and Stevie. Plus, I think your grandmother knows something." "She does, but I don't want her help." "You don't want it, or you don't want to ask for it?" "Both," I said. "What about the faction? Do they know?" "They have more important things to worry about." Brad's beady eyes narrowed, but he didn't say what he was thinking. Much unlike my readable face and thoughts, Brad's thoughts were inscrutable. I didn't have access to them. And his bandit face gave no clues, nothing aside from being adorable. I could only guess what his thoughts were. My friends in the faction, the same organization responsible for my mother's disappearance, were working to help me find my mother's body. I had some comfort knowing her spirit was safe. She inhabited the body of a local owl. But it wasn't the same thing as having my mother back. Not even close. For months, we'd been running on a theory that her familiar had taken her body somehow. His name was Mr. Whiskers. I had vague memories of him from when I was a kid, and Stevie, Grand's familiar, had met him once. Like demons, familiars have their own set of rules. They're allowed to walk freely on Earth, but their magic is limited. They can only use it in the other realms. That is, unless they find another magical source. And I knew where a source like that used to be. Nothing about this theory sat right. So far, there was no sign of him or my mother's body. I needed the faction's help, which they offered to me if I agreed to join them. I'd waffled on the decision for months before finally relenting. Since then, I'd hardly seen them. We barely spoke. It seemed they were no closer to solving my mother's disappearance than I'd been, working on it alone. Brad stretched in a downward dog pose.
What you do and don't tell them is your business. It's hard for you to trust them, isn't it?
That word. A little. Taking his eyes away from the invisible portal, he cocked his small furry head in my direction. Okay, I said. It is. It's hard for me to trust anyone.
Do you trust me?
His words were so familiar, as if he'd asked the same question before. I stumbled on my answer. I do.
This is gonna work,
he promised.
Let me explain what we have to do.
He gave a lengthy and technical explanation of things I'd never understand about magic and the Shadow Realm, its strengths, pitfalls, and challenges. At least we had a plan. Better than my usual technique of winging it and hoping for the best. I'd gotten lucky so many times.
It wasn't all luck,
Brad said, reading my thoughts. I rolled my eyes. It was a lot of luck. Right now, there wasn't any room for luck. Brad's explanation was meant to put my mind at ease. Instead, it put me on edge. There were so many things that could go wrong. Under this plan, I had to handle Custos twice. Brad wanted me to summon and bind him a week early, so he could put some sort of Shadow Realm trace on him ahead of time. This would enable us to find Custos, should he make a run for it. Okay, I said. So when do we do this?
Soon,
he said. How soon?
The sooner the better.
Tomorrow, then?
Like you read my mind.
Brad's mouth opened into a smile. Hardy har, I said, but I wasn't smiling. You aren't worried?
No. Why should I be?
I don't know. I shrugged. What if you get trapped again? What if it goes wrong and he takes you back to that realm, that prison?
It doesn't scare me, Constance. I've been around since the dawn of time. There's no pain I haven't already endured.
Isn't it lonely, though?
Believe it or not, I am used to solitude. It goes hand in hand with being a celestial being. It's this connection, our connection, that's new to me.
I nodded. Same here. But this whole thing is risky. Is it worth it, even? Why don't we just let him go free and trust him to come back? I mean, I know why, but I don't know.
Like I've told you before, he's bound by rules. We all are. Humans and witches, too. Letting him roam this world free is like taking away those rules. He won't have to come back.
I should never have agreed to this. I should have been patient.
And I'd still be stuck down there.
I would have thought of something else.
You wouldn't have.
This is my mistake, I said, not yours. I agreed to it. There was a real possibility that if things went wrong, Brad would end up back in that prison. Why should you have to sacrifice for me?
Our connection makes it worth it,
he said.
I get forever to come back from a mistake. A simple mistake for a human can end everything.
Stupid human problems. I huffed.
More like stupid witch problems.
Hey!
I'm not calling you stupid.
His smile widened.
It's the predicament we're in.
Predicaments, I corrected. Brad's eyes glittered in the moonlight. He went back to staring out into the darkness. We were quiet for a few minutes. What was it like? I finally asked. Being an angel, I mean.
Like nothing you can imagine. Nothing like the words they put in those books. Not like the images, either. I can show you, if you like, through our connection.
You can?
I can, but you'd have to trust me.
You keep saying that.
I keep saying it,
he said.
because I'm not sure you do.
Chapter 2, in which I bind a demon. I hadn't exactly abandoned Gran since I moved into Dave's place. I still picked up her groceries and checked in on her every few days. We ate dinner together once a week, and on the weekends, I tended the garden where we grew magical herbs and some basil. It wasn't much of a stretch to say things were different. The whole dynamic between us had changed. The Gran was every bit the same fiery old lady I'd moved in with when my life hit rock bottom. Sometimes I wondered how it could have been different. What if Mark just told me about his affair? What if he didn't have an affair at all? Don't get me wrong, the outcome would have been much the same. I'd still be divorced. But maybe my magic wouldn't have gone haywire like it did that day, freezing time. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten fired, spoken to a lawyer, and set out across the continent. Gran's spell, the one that drew me here to Creel Creek, wouldn't have worked. For it to work, magic requires a great need. In that moment, I needed a change. A big one. It granted me that and then some. If Mark had just been a man and owned up to his shortcomings, I could have gone on living my life without knowing I was a witch. My magic might not have manifested at all. I still had a key to Gran's house. I held it at the ready and knocked on the door politely. I fully expected Gran's drawl ordering me to use the key so she wouldn't have to get up. Only silence greeted me from the other side of the door. I unlocked it and went inside. From the cramped foyer, I saw Gran's recliner, empty. There wasn't a cat or her familiar Stevie in sight. My own familiar Brad was presently in the shadow realm getting ready. "Hello?" I called out. It was rare for Gran to leave the house, but it wasn't outside the realm of possibility. Pigs will fly if you give them a broom. I stood in the living room, ears pricked. There was only the sound of the house. The AC clicking on, a ticking grandfather clock, ice cracking free from the ice maker and tumbling to the container below. I wouldn't put it past Gran to be napping at this time of day. At any time of day. "Gran?" I called up the stairs. An answer came from above. A slight rumble like the house settling, except it wasn't accompanied by the usual shuffling of feet or scampering of paws. Why do empty houses have to make odd sounds? I shrugged and went about my business, gathering supplies and heading out to the garage. Under Gran's old Buick, she kept a binding circle, a place to trap spirits or supernatural beasts. The circle itself was over 5 feet wide, rusted and made of iron. It was embedded in the concrete. At its center, and also in the concrete, there was a much shinier object, a silver pentagram. Runes nestled inside each of its triangular points. I hit the entire circle with a leaf blower. Then, to reinforce the magic, I made another circle of salt just outside the iron circle. The circles would allow me to summon and bind the demon. He wouldn't like that. I brought some other things along to ease the blow. I set down a half-gallon of chocolate ice cream and a handle of whiskey. And not just any whiskey, but something Cyrus had suggested. Cyrus owned the local vineyard, and he happened to be the most ancient being I knew. If he said something was good, it was good. The whiskey cost me a week's paycheck. Not that my boss paid especially well. I stepped carefully over the salt line, took my place across from the right rune, and began to summon. Hear my voice through Shadow Realm to the depths of Nether. Hear it deep in the worlds they call Never Nether. Hear me summon the jailer of spirits. I summon Hell's own demon guard. Custos the conniving, I summon you now. Here appear in my wards. Black smoke began to billow from the circle. It stopped at the salt line and spiraled into the air, creating a cylinder of thick smoke. and by the laws of our ancient craft I bind thee to this circle. I bind thee and seek counsel. I bind thee."
Yes, yes, you bind thee,"
said a nasally voice from inside the smoke. The smoke cleared from the room in a single puff, revealing the demon. Like a mime, he tested the iron border. He stuck a hand toward it and found something solid. He wasn't trying to force his way out. Not yet. But I jerked back anyway. His light touch sent a small jolt of pain through me. The last time this circle was used, I had Gran and Hilda Jeffries here with me, their magic strengthening the binding. Now it was just me. Me being foolish. I wasn't so sure I was strong enough to keep the demon inside should he try and force his way out. If there was any flaw in the circle or in the circle of my mind, he could find and exploit it. I straightened. It wasn't a good time to show weakness. The demon grinned. Custos bore the appearance of a man in the same manner a wolf can look like a dog from far away. Closer you see the size of the teeth. His eyes were crimson red, and not just the iris. There was no white, no pupil. His teeth were the opposite, too white, too sharp. He wore a suit tailored to fit his frame, which appeared average. Behind him something was hidden under the suit's jacket. Wings, maybe? Custos bent down and helped himself to the whiskey with an eager hand. He didn't bother removing the cork. He jerked his wrist to break the glass, leaving a jagged opening he put to his lips without any hesitation. After several long pulls, he set the bottle down and used the same enthusiasm to open the ice cream. Before digging in, he saluted me with the plastic spoon I'd left there for him.
"You're a little early, and—"
He used the spoon to indicate the binding circle.
"I don't believe this was part of our deal."
"You're right." I nodded. It wasn't. He sighed and dug out a big scoop. He took more care with the plastic spoon than he had the glass, relishing the cold treat and licking the spoon clean with a forked tongue.
"I know what this is about."
"You're wrong." I shook my head. "I'm still honoring our deal as promised."
"You are?"
He raked his nails against the barrier.
"Could have fooled me."
A hiss of pain made my teeth clench. Let me explain.
"It's not as if I have anywhere else I can go."
"It won't be today," I said. "But on the anniversary of our deal, you have my word."
"Oh, I've had your word for some time. And your demon. You do understand what will happen should our contract be broken."
"I do understand, or I think I do."
"And we're not adding more terms. A deal is a deal."
"I'm not adding more terms," I said. "But I'm unsure about something." He arched an eyebrow. "What happens while you're gone? Who takes over? Could Beiruth escape?" He scooped up the whiskey.
"My safeguards can stand up to anything. To anyone. At least for a short while. It's an hour. What's the worst that could happen?"
"You tell me," I said. "What would happen if Beiruth got free from your realm?"
He shrugged. "Nothing much. She's still a demon, still bound to the Shadow Realm unless someone calls her elsewhere."
"Elsewhere? Meaning here? To Earth?" He bent his head in a slight nod and rolled his red eyes, acting as if I was asking the dumbest questions he'd ever heard. Maybe I was. "Okay, what's stopping someone from summoning her now?"
"My realm,"
he said, then drained the whiskey.
"I am the only entity who can be summoned from it. You know for yourself that's true. Did you not try to summon your familiar?"
"I tried." Custos narrowed his crimson eyes.
"Where is the little scamp?" "He's on his way."
Brad's thoughts echoed in my head. Done? I asked.
It took longer than I thought it would, but yes.
The demon looked around the garage, suspicion growing and lines forming on his brow. I nodded to myself. I had to give Brad some time. You know as well as I do he isn't a scamp.
I'm sorry if I find it funny to choose such a demeaning life. I like that word, demeaning. It serves them well. Familiars aren't so different from demons. It stems from the same choice. After all, we both sin. Now where is he? I'm here.
Brad appeared from the kitchen. How he managed to nudge the door open, I didn't know.
Hello again,
Custo said.
Hello, jailer.
Brad stayed well away from the circle's boundary. It was hard to see emotion in his raccoon face, and yet somehow the wariness in his dark eyes shone through.
It wasn't my fault. Blame the spell, blame the caster. I can't help if I was compelled to lock you in my prison.
It might have been my mind playing a trick on me, but for a second in my peripheral vision, Brad's form flickered from raccoon to something else. Something angelic. They might have made similar decisions, but the paths they took were different. Custos's path turned him into a monster. In the shadow realm, Brad reverted to his true form. He was like a marble statue, chiseled and perfect.
Did you ever tell us who cast the spell?
Brad asked the demon.
Was it Hal? The bumbling oaf.
Custo snickered.
No, I'm afraid he had help.
What kind of help? I asked.
A woman. She looked a lot like you.
What do you mean? She was a witch? She was blonde?
No, I mean she looked a lot like you. Similar features. Maybe she was a few years older. I'm afraid I don't really understand the aging thing.
Was she really a woman, though? We had experienced possession of bodies before, from a demon inside my own head to a familiar occupying Gran's neighbor Agatha.
That's an interesting question.
The demon licked his lips with his forked tongue.
What do I get out of this, if I answer it?
What do you mean?
I mean, what do I get for offering you this information? You earn our trust,
Brad said. The demon chuckled again.
Trust isn't earned by sharing secrets. It's hard-fought. It's earned by keeping promises. Something you two haven't done.
Yet? I exclaimed. Custo smiled an evil smile. His teeth were like daggers.
I think you two already know the answer. It was a woman in appearance only. Something else lurked underneath.
Who?
I'm done answering your questions. That is, unless you wish to compel me to answer. You've bound me here, after all. You could do it. You could try. Don't play into his games.
Brad boomed. I won't, I said. And he's right. Information doesn't prove he's trustworthy. It doesn't prove anything. Chapter 3. Creel Creek After Dark. Episode 106. It's getting late. Very late. The creeping dread of tomorrow haunts your dreams. It's dark out. Are you afraid? Welcome to Creel Creek After Dark. Yeah, I'm your host, Ivana Steak. Listen, I know it's been a while. I'm sorry I haven't put an episode out in 2 months. It's just, well, it's been rough. I wanted to hop on here and tell you I'm still alive, if you care, that is. Some of you do. I've been getting your emails. Lots of emails. And I've watched your Paratube videos, too. They're awesome, really. They are. I promise to go live there soon. It's just, Creel Creek After Dark isn't the same without Athena. I wanted to do this without her, really I did. I thought I was capable. But she did so much work you folks never saw. So much behind the scenes. And that...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?